Hey now.
Hey now.
What is happening, Brendan Smith?
Hey now.
Yeah,
Brendan.
what is happening?
Well, let me just say to our listeners, we're also on video. So if you are listening to us, you can find us on the YouTube as well. And if there's anything that hits you, leave a comment and we will comment back if there's anything you want to discuss. Yeah, so we're here with Brendan Smith today, who you are not a stranger to podcasts at all.
No, I think I spend a good 50% of my week doing podcasts, guessing on podcasts, recording my own, the whole 9 yards. It is, and then sitting down for coffee with people who want to know how to still do podcasts. So, yeah, I would never call myself a podcaster, but it has taken over my life.
Nice.
Wait,
Nice.
so why would you never call yourself one?
I just hate the way that sounds, podcaster. And they
So
used
what
to in
do
the
you-
early.
I was going to say, what do you label yourself? If somebody said to you, "Hey, Brendan, what do you do?"
I'm just Brendan. That's all that I am, man. I'm just Brendan. Just point me to where they're cutting checks, and I'll be there.
Yeah, right. Point me in the direction of the bank. You know,
Yeah.
you know. Interesting,
Yeah.
you say that. Somebody asked me the other day, a couple of weeks ago, said, "Hey, what do you do?" And I said, "I'm a man of leisure." And they laughed and said, "No, really, what do you do?" And I said, "No, I'm not kidding you. I'm a man of leisure." They said, "No, come on." I said, "Look, I do what I want when I want. I put, again, because of the work that, we've done on ourselves, we get to do stuff like this that's for fun and we enjoy it, but it was kind of funny that this guy literally laughed and said, "No, really, what do you do?" I was like, "I'm serious. I get to do whatever I want when I want." It's nice.
That is my sole approach to life. I
love
am
it.
uniquely qualified to win Powerball because I just know how to relax and do mega leisure. And
Nice.
I don't need a boss telling me that I can do that. In fact, I've sort of constructed in my life in a way that I have no bosses. So there's some good in that and there's some bad in that. But yeah, leisure time is just like it's what I'm the best at.
Well, I love that though, because isn't that kind of the goal, is to get to a point where you're happy, joyous, and free, and you get to wake up and do what you want, and there's no stress, no drama, and to also be your own boss. I've been self-employed my entire life. I've never worked for anyone. And it's there's that thing though, bigger the risk, bigger the reward, because when you're self-employed, if you don't generate, well, you don't eat. You can't just get up and go on vacation and get a paid vacation either. It's like you got to prepare for that. So you're working twice as hard as anyone else to be a man of leisure, but in the long run, hopefully it pans out.
Yeah,
Richard, I can tell you that you can take a vacation even if you're not employed. So
Yeah. Let me help you out, Rich. I love it. Thank you.
I'd like to find a way to be even more relaxed. So I'm going to take a vacation in my leisure time.
I have a little bit of a difficult time with that self-care part of it. Like, I guess because I am self-employed and I work so hard, I think, well, yeah, do I need to spend the money? But if you don't take some time out for yourself, man, it's like that thing. If you're boiling water, if you don't, move the top a little bit to let that steam out every once in a while, eventually something's going to blow. And it might not be on someone else, but even worse when you do it to yourself.
Well, yeah. And, this actually brings us up to the topic that we were going to drop on you, because it's connected to the podcasting that you do, kind of, or it could be. It really depends on how you're going to answer it. First, you do the Brandocast, which is mostly on, go ahead and fill out the blank.
rock
Is it
music.
classic rock, just rock, or classic rock?
Well, I mean, just based on the guests that I have, it's a lot of what I would call Gen X rock. It's a lot of what they now call sort of legacy rock. It's a lot of 90s. It's a lot of 80s, a lot of 70s. And I have guests on, wide range of actors and musicians. I've had Dionne Warwick. I've had Frank Black from the Pixies, Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles, tons of comics and actors here in town. Catherine Hahn, Patton Oswalt, for those of you who follow, stand-up comedy, one of the biggest comics in the country. There's a lot of different people And what I do is I bring them on and we talk. I ask them what their favorite artist is, who their favorite artist is, who's their favorite band, who's their favorite solo artist. And then I just use that person or that band's history as a starting point for the conversation. But the whole thing is designed to get them to talk about high school and the first jobs and their first apartments and their first jobs and all that kind of stuff. Because I've always found that like the thing that they love the most, they carry with them everywhere. So their love of bands and artists take them to a date gone wrong, the first time they got fired. And it just opens up the conversation that it's not a nerd off about, that band or that thing that they love. That's just a starting point. And it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
That sounds like fun.
And the other one is Rocktails. It's like cocktails.
That is Rocktails.
With rock.
Rocktails like cocktails. Rocktails with Ahmet Zappa. We are live now on YouTube every Friday night at 5 o'clock Pacific Coast time. Taking your phone calls at 855-601-ROCK. Ahmet Zappa, son of Frank. Ahmet is Batman. I am Robin. And, we had a show on Sirius Radio for the last couple years on Volume Channel 106. Sirius just got rid of that channel. So we have taken our fans and moved to YouTube. And already our show is bigger than it was on Sirius. And
that's great.
We get thank you. And because of Ahmet and everyone that his Rolodex is, he just knows everybody. So we just had Gene Simmons from Kiss on the show. We just had Sebastian Bach in the studio with us for an hour and a half live on camera.
Nice.
We got to talk to so many different people when we were on Sirius, and we also have a setup for live bands so bands can come and perform in the studio. We got a full band setup, so that's a lot of fun. And the people that, like I said, the people who listen to Volume on Sirius religiously followed us, and they're sort of the core of our audience, which is really fun. And a lot of them call in the show every week, and it's just a lot of fun.
That sounds great.
Awesome.
Which is why this is the question we have for you. How do you turn what you love into a career? For our listeners, because this is something people really want to know. Like, how do you turn what you love into a career?
I listen, I wish there was a set book about this. This is not 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, but I have always believed in the simple tenet that if you follow your heart, the money will follow. And that, I think, in the arts, it can be tricky because the world of commerce doesn't always overlap with the world of art. Artists since the dawn of time have obsessed about how do they get compensated for their work. For the last 30 years in LA, I've written. I have sold screenplays. I have sold pilots to networks. I have been paid for that art. And that's a continuous hustle. And even though you love writing so much, it's not an easy answer about how you get compensated. Now in this world of like podcasting and broadcasting, that's the same thing applies, because there's a ton of people who love to do this, who love to talk, who love to share their sort of point of view with the world. But in terms of like, how do you turn that into, how do you monetize that? To me, it's just a massive leap of faith. And I think that all you can do is follow your heart and be authentic, and then let the chips fall where they may. And stick. It's for fun and for free until further notice. And I truly believe that the universe will come knocking when it's time to monetize. Someone takes an interest in what you're doing. Like it's, again, I don't think there's one set way to do it, but if you love doing it, why not?
I agree. I think if you do something and you're happy at what you're doing, then what you're saying, the rest will kind of fall into place. I remember when I first moved to Los Angeles, and I was very new to Los Angeles, and I met some people, and they lived up in the hills, and I remember this one guy, became very good friends with him, and he had a language company. It was translation, where people would call in from different countries or whatever and need a translator, and he would provide the translator between in the phone call. And he had several people underneath him working for him. He was making so much money. And I remember at the time, I always thought to myself, well, man, how does he do it? Maybe what am I doing wrong? Because I was very new to Los Angeles, and I didn't come from this mindset of what we're talking about. Just do what you love, happiness, and the rest will fall into place. So then I thought, well, oh no, it's either got to be in the industry or technology, or you got to invent an app or something like that. Then I thought, and I sat back and I thought, well, wait a minute, why don't you just stick to what you know and be happy with what you know and hone in on those skills, and you will eventually, like you're saying, get to a place of your own success in your own right. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses or following, or I got to be like that guy. It's like, wait, let me look at myself. Let me reflect. And what do I have that I can do that I love doing, but yet eventually, hopefully you'll get to that spot. And I got to be honest with you, if you stick with it, you will get to a place of success. And I don't ever want to, I never use the word contentment, because I don't know. I just don't think, but that's another mindset. I don't think we should be content.
And for those of you who have not tuned in before, what is it that you do?
I'm a general contractor by trade. That's what I've done my entire life. And then I also started when I came out here. Well, even prior to this, I train people. I teach self-defense. I train people with weights, nutrition, all that stuff. So I've had two careers
Simultaneously.
Right, simultaneously, that I've done back to back my entire life out here. And then, like I was saying, though, I always looked at the neighbors and said, "Oh man, the grass is always greener. If I could just be like that, if I could just invent an app or be an actor or whatever." But then when I kind of took a step back and said, "Man, but you know what you know, and just keep at it." And now I'm, like I said, I'm in a good position, and I'm happy. So
that's all that counts.
Yeah.
Wait. Ask that one more time. I'm so sorry.
Do you do that? Do you do the grass is always greener thing?
Well, when I catch myself doing that, I have to stop immediately, because the compare and despair thing. I don't care if you're an artist, you're a plumber, or you work with numbers. Like, the comparing and despairing, I truly believe is a way that we tear ourselves down. I mean, I can weaponize that so quickly, especially in this city, where just driving from point A to point B, you're going to pass people doing better than you are, no matter who you are.
Right.
And it is a waste of spiritual energy, I think, to even worry about the grass is always greener. I mean, how do you make the grass green where you are? How do you let go of sort of childish dreams of what success looks like? Or how do you let go of those dreams we have in youth, where we think success has to look like one very specific thing, and it has to look like a very specific partner and a very specific house in a very specific part of town, and it's this amount of money in my bank? Like, how do you let that stuff go? But the grass is always greener. That is such a to me. That's such a dangerous thought.
And can you explain what compare and despair means? Just to those who've never heard that term before.
Who've never heard that term.
We're all close to it, but what does it mean?
That means that when you compare your insides to somebody else's outsides, you see a fancy house, you see a successful couple at a restaurant, you see a friend who has succeeded in a certain way, and then you go, "God damn it, there's success. I don't have that. Ah, shit." Like, that's the thought process. Like, why don't I would be better if I had that. I would be happier if I had that. Why don't I have that? It just opens up just a torrent of negative thoughts. But yeah, it's comparing your insides to somebody else's outsides. The quick tangent, the one thing I've learned is, like, some people might look like they're doing great and living the life, but they might be suffering too. I mean, that's the law of the universe. You do not know, you know? So
it's that thing, what comes to mind is that, shoulda, coulda, woulda. If I could have, if I would have just done this, or if should, it's to me, those are like the three obstacles. I think they're all three bad words: shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's
yep.
Kind of a compare and despair, and then also that thing of keeping up with the Joneses, and that's sensationalism, because it's not just from our childhood and what has been told to us and what has been emulated, especially out here in Hollywood, but also what sensationalism. Every time you turn on the TV, it's like, if you just wear this, or if you just drive this, or if you have that car, you're a success. So, and then when you don't, yeah.
I'm raising my hand.
Exactly. Oh no, I've gotten caught up in it as well.
Well, I was going to say, this is going to sound super hippie-ish, but I think that sort of mindset, that the man wants you to keep up with the Joneses, because the man wants you working your ass off for him. Like my brother once said to me, I never want to help another man make money. And that was so profound to me. I mean, my brother's a master electrician, but because he didn't want to work in a world where he had to answer to a boss. And we just started talking about the pressure that underlings have to keep up with the Joneses, which keeps them a lot of times in a job that makes them miserable, because they think they need that job for stability, or, eventually the leprechaun will show up with a pot of gold. And until then, they have to suffer through that. So the whole keeping up with the Joneses, I think, was sort of like an institutional thing thrown into the system, when I believe that we were all put here to be happy, joyous, and free. And then we just invented all these constructs that made that really hard for us. Like
Agreed.
Most people think, I can't be happy, joyous, and free until I work my ass off for 30 odd years, and I get a little retirement chunk, and I get investment property, and I have income coming in, and the kids are at the school, and the this, that, and the other thing. Like, I can't be happy until those things show up for me. And I think that is the thing that makes people sick, because, you can be happy whether you're in a good job or a bad job. You can be happy whether you're in a good relationship or a bad relationship. You can be happy whether you live in a fun city or a lame city. It's all on the individual to be happy. And so those outside constructs, all have always driven me crazy a little bit. I hope that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I was actually in Savannah, and I found out that's where Keeping Up with the Joneses started. There's a street called Jones Street, and the people who live there were the richest in the city. And that is where it started.
Interesting.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, it's a combination of, you see it in person, what you said, Brendan, and what you said, Richard, about it's been sensationalized. Because if you see in person what you've seen on the screen, well, that guy must be successful. But I, for one, when you said a lot of times they're not really like that when you get to know them. I remember there was one woman that I thought had all kinds of money. Turns out she leased the car, and she lived in a studio apartment, and she just dressed a certain way. And it's like, and that's fine. She gets to do whatever she wants. But my idea of what somebody has, if I watch them go around the world, does not mean anything. It's basically a reflection of what I want. I love what you said about making your own grass greener. Make your own grass greener is the answer.
Agreed.
But that's hard for people, because we're not. That's not taught in the Keeping Up with the Joneses. The grass is always greener construct. Like, it's not taught that way. It isn't. Like, you're taught. For the most part, we're taught to work our ass off.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about what society dictates to us, right? It's like you said. You got to work for 30 years, then you get your retirement, then you retire, and then you will be happy because now you're retired, you got a little money. But I got to be honest with you, 90 95% of the people who do that and are retired, I've spoken to quite a few people that are older than myself and have done that construct, and they are not happy. They're like, I should have never retired. I'm bored out of my mind. I want to rip my hair out. I'm going down the rabbit hole every day. And so I think, and there goes back to the whole theme of, if you're doing something that you love and that you truly enjoy, and it gives you fulfillment, well, then you really never retire, because there's always something to do, and it makes you want to get out of bed in the morning. It makes you want to get into life, stay in your own lane, kind of just enjoy things. And I know for me, I come from the East Coast like yourself, and I was raised by an old-fashioned Italian from the Bronx, and my dad was in construction, so I come from construction, and it was, you got to get up, you got to work pretty much 7 days a week, bust your ass. I don't want to hear no complaints, no whining, and you work for minimum wage, and whatever you can afford to put away, you put away, and hopefully down the road, 30, 40 years from now, you'll be okay. But if you, right? I mean, think about it. That
sounds terrible.
It is terrible.
But it is the way that most people have been taught and how they think. And it's the grandparents. I think it was probably maybe the Great Depression that really embedded that in the brains.
Yes.
And also when people got back from the war, and all of a sudden the women had to go into there's lots of things that society has done, the propaganda or the government has done in order to get society thinking this. I don't know if it's always been the way they thought.
It's prevalent. It's post-industrial America. It's when all of the immigrant cultures were brought over to work in the mills of the East Coast. Because I grew up in Pittsburgh, Irish people were brought. My ancestors came to Pittsburgh to work in the mills. And they started there. And then each generation got a little bit better than the other one. Someone went to law school, and then someone else was able to go to law school. But originally, they were brought over to work. And so that mentality was, work was survival. Because they had no other options. There were no options to be an artist or to be a bohemian. They had to work. It was work or die. And, that was also a time in America where, like, the secret of the arts was, like, for the most part, the arts were like the refuse of the dysfunctional children of the wealthy. You know what I mean?
Well, and then
they were all the undiagnosed ADD kids.
Yes. But then also think about this, from what you're saying, as a kid growing up in that generation, right, with the parents that we had, and I'm talking like, immigrants and stuff like that, you weren't allowed to, have a I don't want to say a fantasy, but you weren't even allowed to be a creative or think, well, I'm going to go do this. And they were like, how dare you? You're going to do exactly what your father did, and you're going to like it because that's what we do. Instead of saying, I commend you, congratulations, yeah, get after it, go for your dreams. When I moved to California, interestingly enough, I worked for my father all my life in construction. When I moved to California, my father did not speak to me for 10 years. He was so upset that I left the business. How dare you? Who do you think you are that you can leave this business and go out on your own? You think you're going to survive? Yeah, you're going to come back with your tail between your legs. And that was one thing I said, that will never happen. And it was scary, coming out, going somewhere different, not knowing anyone.
Well, this is a great segue, because I was going to ask the two of you, how do you then change that if you have that thought process now embedded inside of you? How do you, to keep up with to go to the topic of, like, how do you create what you love? Because we know you might have to have a side job as you are doing that, because you might need to feed kids and stuff, whatever. But how do you start changing your mindset? Like, how do you get out of that groove? What do you think? Brendan, want to go first?
Well, I think that, I think that you have to learn to bet on yourself. Like you have to learn to bet on yourself. You have to learn to, like, that you're basically your own free agent in life. And that you do have more choices than you can possibly imagine. Like, if you follow your heart for business reasons. Let's say you're very good at guitar and you want to be in a band and you want to be a musician. Like it's a really hard life. But if you stick with it, a lot of times you'll get to the point where when you continue to practice and play and get those 10,000 hours of mastery in, that again, the world might catch up with you and the world might start compensating you for what you do. And if you're really good, the cream always rises to the top. You'll get that, but you have to have that vision, that dream. You have to have a little bit of that passion. And then you also have to know yourself well enough to know that other life is no good for you. Like I know I couldn't work in an office. I can't work with numbers. I can't sit and look at sheets of numbers and try to figure out why this business is more valuable than that. My brain is not even constructed for that. So, I think I'm rambling a little bit, but I think you just have to learn to bet on yourself. And however life gets you there, that's it.
Yeah, and there comes trusting yourself. I think, again, what I was speaking about generationally, and what I just said about, your parents saying, how dare you go off on your own and think you can do something different, which puts that program into your head that you're not good enough and you can't do something else. So then to move 3,000 miles away, set up camp and try to survive in a town that you don't know anybody, you have to really rely on your own capacity and trust that what you want to do is going to pan out, or at least give it a shot. People don't even try because of the program that is put upon us that you can't be this, that, or the other thing. But I think in a world, especially now, there's so many, like you said, podcast, everything. There's so much out there that we can do if we just take a chance on yourself. I'm like you. I could never work in an office, which, funny enough, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Office Space, but oh my God, that cracks. Every time I watch it, I die laughing because I think to myself, I don't know what I would do if I had to work in an office.
I would probably pull out the air conditioner unit and start stamping on it too. Or wait, was it a printer? What was it? You started beating up with
the printer. Yeah,
I would do it too because I've had 3 printers in my life, and all 3 of them I've broken within a month. And I don't know why. I might be a little too like, come on, print, and then I start pulling on it and it objects to that. I don't know why. But yeah. I don't understand those kinds of machines. Yeah.
Again, it's being your own best friend and trusting that you are talented, you are skillful. If you put in enough time, that maybe someone will notice. And if not, a lot of things it's okay to just do for fun and for free. If something makes you happy, do it, because if it makes you happy and you enjoy doing it, well, you don't need to get the monetary compensation for it necessarily.
And maybe that will come over time.
Right.
Yeah, just don't obsess about how fast the money comes. I had coffee the other day with someone who wanted to know how to jump into podcasting. And basically the subtext of the entire conversation was, how do I get to the money really fast?
Oh.
And I wanted to be like, oh God, you can't.
You're so pretty.
You don't. Yeah. Good luck. You can't but that's what drives people crazy. As soon as they bring that into the equation, then they're just creating a frustration engine that's just going to be there running all day long. I have friends who, I have a great friend who's who manages talent, and she has a lot of clients who have podcasts, and they will basically call her all day, every day, demanding to know when is their thing going to take off, because their friend's thing has taken off and their friend is making X amount of dollars. And she just has told me so many times, like, I'm just handling calls from lunatics who just are screaming, where's mine? You got to just take that where's mine thought from your head, no matter what you're doing, and get rid of that. It's like a gremlin trying to dismantle an airplane.
Well, along with that, people don't want to put in the time. I've noticed a lot with some people.
With everything.
Right. And I don't want to make a blanket statement because that's not what we do here. We're trying to pump people up. But you can't go into a situation like what you just said, and you're sitting down with a guy and he says, I want to be a podcaster like you, but I want the money today. How do I get to that money? They don't even want to put in the time. Interestingly enough, I was talking to someone, and they are in business, and they had a guy come in that was a manager and spoke the language and did all the business. And he was trying to help these kids when they graduate to have a job to then get into their career and work. And these kids, he said 90% of these kids were saying, well, if I don't start at six figures, I'm not even going to take the job. And here this guy is offering them a job to learn and to hone in on their skills, and these kids didn't even want to have nothing to do with it. Nah, I don't want to practice. I want to get to your level.
Well, there's always going to be people like that.
Right.
It's not even about the kids. It's about there's always going to be somebody who wants the fast ride.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things we have to know is you have to put in the time, but if you're trying to find out how to do something, success leaves clues is the famous quote. I don't remember who said it.
Oh, I like that.
Success leaves clues. There are people being interviewed all over that are in your field. So that's my tip I can leave our listeners with today as well is, just to add to what you guys said and say, you can look up your subject. This is not the days that I was raised in where you had to go to the library and pull out that long catalog thing with the thing and go and find a book. No, now we get to, the interviews are readily available. It's like those people are sitting in your house. A master is sitting in your house, or just some people who are flubbing their way through it, failing and sharing that process are in your house when they are searched for. They're all interviewing. And that's what I did when I became an author. I'm self-pub, but I've sold over 1 million books worldwide because what I did was I found every article I could possibly read on successful self-published author. Interview. And I just read them, and I took notes in a book, and then I found my way, and I put in my more than 10,000 hours, of course, as well. But I had, and that was through writing every day and my word count quota, which I learned from reading Stephen King's book, which is a master, right? So there's all kinds of ways you can learn how to make a living doing something that seems impossible. Because everybody was like, self-pubbing, you're not going to make any money. People sell a couple books a month. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And I remember a friend of ours actually, I'm not going to share the name of it, but they're like, well, this is really good. You did your first book, and if it never goes anywhere, that's fine. I said, oh no, I'm going to make a living at this. And she's like, oh, you're really certain on that? I said, I'm very clear on that. And it took me some time, but it's because then you just go and put the work, you do the research, you apply it, you fail and you get up and you do it again, and you fail and you get up and you do it again. The only way you really fail is if you quit.
Tenacity, drive, and discipline. You have to be disciplined. If you're not disciplined, you're not going to get anywhere. And if you don't have the tenacity to have a thick skin and get after it, no one's going to come knocking on your door and say, hey, do you want to be this, that, or the other thing, or you want the winning lottery ticket? No, you got to get up every day, and you got to feed yourself, and you got to believe in yourself, and you got to get after it, put in that time.
That's true. Yeah. Agreed.
Nice.
Well, Brendan, this was an absolute blast. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to say in a last tip to our listeners, or anything you'd like to
Good
share?
luck. Get in line. Grab a number.
Don't
get in line.
Quitters
Life
never
is a
win,
giant
winners never quit. Yeah,
right.
I love it.
Life is a giant DMV. You're just waiting for C120, C121.
Yeah,
C122.
And you just gotta have fun while you're doing it. Like, just have fun.
Yeah.
Really, it's just
Get a dog. Get a dog. Go on hikes. If you live in Los Angeles, go to Griffith Park every morning. It's a great place. It's a great way to start the day.
Exactly.
Yeah, but happy, joyous, and free. I really do believe follow your heart and the money will follow. I really do. I really believe that. I could be completely wrong, but
But you're happy.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Your own best friend. Right?
Be your own best friend. Yeah.
Or get a dog.
But also, fuck But also, fuck it. We live in the Matrix. It's all made up for us. We're all just puppets on a spring. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Smoke a joint, have a cocktail, go on a hike. You know what I mean? Just, who cares?
Red pill, blue pill. It's your choice. You know. Do you want to be a hamster on the wheel, or do you want to be in your own world and be in control of your own world? How great is that, right? To call your own shots, dress the way you want, do what you want.
Yeah. I actually had that thought the other day. It's all bullshit. Like, you get to do whatever you want. Just go do what you want.
Right.
And also don't hurt people while you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's the key. Like, do what you want, but don't hurt people.
100%. And my version of don't hurt people is like literally don't punch people, don't stab people. But you might disappoint people along the way if you do what you want. But 9 times out of 10, that's on them and not on you. Like, do what it takes to be happy, joyous, and free. That's it.
Stay in your own lane and have a vision of the future for yourself. You will never fail.
All right.
Get after it.
This has been Brendan Smith, and you were freaking awesome, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All the things. Follow Brendan as well. We're going to have him on our site, and there will be information on that on the YouTube. Bye.
Nice.